Hello, everyone. Can you hear me okay? Yeah? Well, welcome to GDG Seattle September meetup. I am so excited to see so many of you here tonight to hear from a couple of women speakers from the Seattle tech community. Typically, if you have been to our events before, we will talk about a particular Google technology. However, tonight, Women Techmakers is promoting women speakers tonight. So we're here to hear 5 talks. And the first one is Stani, Will Robots Take Our Jobs? Please welcome.
Can you hear me okay? Good evening. Okay, so let's see. Just trying to get the cursor to. Good evening. My talk tonight is about an interesting topic, I think. Will robots take our jobs? Socioeconomic impacts of intelligent machines. And when I use the word robots here, I don't use it just to mean humanoid robots or industrial robots, but rather as an umbrella term for any type of automation up to and including narrow AI. So narrow artificial intelligence is a type of intelligence that allows machines to perform highly specialized tasks, in many cases at least as well or better than humans. Some examples, IBM's Watson or Google's AlphaGo and many other practical applications as well. Let's see here. So my name is Stani Meredith, and I am a web and mobile development instructor at Seattle Central College. You can follow me on Twitter if you like. I follow back. So we find ourselves in the amidst the 4th industrial revolution, which is also known as the digital revolution. And it is characterized by the following. It is a fusion of physical, digital, and biological systems. So some examples, some of you might be familiar with the CRISPR gene editing technology or the Fitbit. Those are not necessarily related, but 2 examples of the fusion that I'm describing here. Also, the industrial revolution is exponential rather than linear. So what it means is we have evolved as linear, middle-sized, creatures, and it is difficult for us to keep up and to comprehend exponential growth. So we have a challenge we're facing here in this way as well. And lastly, the digital revolution is disruptive worldwide. So everyone is either affected already or will be affected very, very soon by what is taking place currently. A couple drivers, you might be wondering, well, why is this happening? So you're probably familiar with Moore's law, although I guess there is some, I don't want to get too distracted due to the short of time, maybe no longer holding, but Moore's law, quantum computing, and also since 2014, capital investment has tripled in automation and robotization. So there is a lot of impetus for this to continue taking place. It is not going away. Here is a condensed graph of the accelerating growth in technology, starting with a printing press. More interestingly, as you can see here, I don't know if you can see my laser pointer, but towards the top of the graph here, we're becoming more and more dense. So we have 3D printing autonomous cars, and today, every day, when you open up a publication or read anything, there are amazing discoveries happening practically on a daily basis. So this is continuing to grow, and if Ray Kurzweil is correct, by 2045, it's going to culminate with a so-called technical singularity. So obviously there is a lot of impact, not just in the future of jobs, but other impacts as well. But tonight I'm talking about the future of jobs. My source for this talk is the World Economic Forum Executive Summary, which was put together in the beginning of 2016. So it's relatively new. It has been updated. Other sources, I think, more or less will go along those numbers as well. So we're facing the loss of 7.1 million jobs due to redundancy, automation, and disintermediation. In other words, we no longer need, for example, taxi dispatchers because now we have a Uber app to accomplish the same goal. We can expect the creation of 2.1 million jobs, and all these jobs are going to be new, highly specialized skills. Everyone is going to be affected worldwide, all industries, and you can do the math, resulting in about a net lost job of 5 million jobs due to technical factors, technology-related factors. Here is another look at this. So this is, I don't know if you can, hopefully you can see it okay from where you're sitting. This is the net employment outlook by family. The black dots represent jobs lost. The blue dots represent jobs gained. First of all, you can see at the very top, we're talking about order of magnitude difference between jobs lost versus jobs created. So who was hit the hardest? Office and administrative. These numbers, by the way, are in the thousands. So, so we have office and administrative, manufacturing, construction. On the other end, we have business, financial, management, and also perhaps of most interest to this group, computers and mathematical. And since I'm an educator, also education and training is going to grow a little bit. This is the very last dot here on this screen. So here is a different view into this situation, which is what are the actual technical factors that are contributing to what we saw earlier. And it is interesting because we already have autonomous cars. So in Philadelphia, Uber has rolled out autonomous taxis, and I read in Singapore as well, this is happening. Everything is moving faster than we're expecting it to happen. But if we take a look here, the impacts already felt include mobile and cloud technology, sharing economy, climate change. We have already felt those impacts. We're now amidst new supplies and technology, IoT, and also a lot of interest in biotech, including some serious research, believe it or not, into defeating death. If you're interested in this topic as I am, you can check out Aubrey de Grey. And also women are raising more awareness of their situation and wanting to participate more, which is wonderful. Okay, very happy to be here. And also there are some concerns, great concerns really about privacy. So in a couple of years, where do we expect to be? Well, more of the same, and also some new technologies. We actually don't know yet what they are. More impacts from robotics, autonomous transport, more impacts from AI, and of course, data science, machine learning, and so on. Let's see here. So let's focus on information technology. So first of all, if you're in IT, information technology, you are in a good place. That's the good news. Currently, the demand for software developers is at an all-time high. I would like to point out things to maybe pay attention to as well. So right now, we are generating unprecedented amount of content, and we need narrow AIs to actually analyze this data for us. Of course, humans have an important part in this, but humans are not good enough to actually be able to handle the amount of data that is thrown at us, so we need narrow AIs for this purpose. We also have another interesting phenomena. Have you heard of Stack Overflow? I hope you have. Right, Stack Overflow. All right, so code writing code. Of course, we're not quite there yet with Stack Overflow. You always need to do something in addition to. However, the idea being is that you can gather together pieces of code autonomously and then use automation to produce something new. Case in point, DARPA gave a grant to Rice University to develop the Pliny tool. We also have automated systems. So sysadmin jobs, this used to be a pretty solid job. Right now, there is a lot of automation taking place where these jobs are actually getting automated out. I can give you a name of a company in Seattle called Chef, and many other examples. And I also have a statistic to share with you along the lines of the impacts of automation on employers versus users. In 2016, Facebook employed 14,495 users as employees, excuse me, and the users are 1.13 billion daily users. Okay, so with quite a small group of people, very far-reaching impacts. Websites are easy to standard most parts, so they can be automated. There are plenty of drag and drop, so-called coding environments and tools as well. Mobile industry is interesting because it is actually expected to grow. However, right now, we don't know what 40% of the core skill sets will be that will be taught in the relatively near future. Again, we're seeing some great changes in front of us, and it's a little difficult to keep up with what's going on. Thought it was time for a visual, so here is a security robot from Silicon Valley for your viewing pleasure. So what are the skills for the jobs of tomorrow? So David Benny, who is an education and economics professor from Harvard, did a study, and according to him, there are two broad categories we need to be good at to succeed for the jobs of the future, and they are math skills and soft skills. On this graph here, the green dots represent growth. They look yellow, I guess, but the purple represent decline. So who is at the top of this graph here? Social skills and math skills. Social managers, because they are both good with social skills and with math skills. Computer scientists, which are probably of interest to you, also grew along the line of the math skills. Interestingly, social skills, vocational trainers, and lawyers and judges also in high growth, in high demand. And who was hit the hardest? Welders and other mechanical laborers, because they're very low on the graph. They have both low low math skills and also low social skills. And the trend that is illustrated here is expected to continue to grow. So what does this mean for the technologists in the room? Some possibilities to consider: technical project management, both soft skills and high-tech skills. Data science, mobile and cloud development, customizations. For a long time, probably maintaining legacy code, because not everyone is actually interested, is investing in the greatest technology, latest technology. And also technical training a little bit, as we saw in the graph, a slight, growth is expected there. Last but not least, new technologies. And this is where I'd like to read you a brief quote from the Google Director of Engineering, Ray Kurzweil. So it happened that on the 11th of September, he was talking on Star Talk Radio. And so he was asked, what do you think the distribution of jobs will be in 20 years? So this is Ray Kurzweil's answer. New types of jobs creating new types of knowledge that don't exist yet. Look at how many fields of science and tech that didn't exist 100 years ago. We will continue the exponential explosion of knowledge. And I'm pretty sure that many of you in the room as well are probably working on a cool technology today. So the problem, or it's not really a problem, but the situation is technical in nature. In the center of it is technology, but not all solutions are technical. We also need to get engaged along education, work arrangement, as well as even political action, because it's a big issue we're dealing with. So some proposed solutions to consider: rethinking education systems. First of all, education systems are not able to keep up the pace in many cases with the changing technology. And of course, MOOCs are a great answer. They allow for the democratization of education, but research shows they're not ideal for everyone. Some students just don't do very well in online learning environments. Incentivize lifelong learning. We need to be able to be very flexible and be willing to learn new skills, because skills keep on changing. Give voice to diverse demographics in the building of AIs. And also flexible work arrangements, online platforms, and sharing economy. Sharing economy, no benefits, no worker rights. So these are not perfect solutions, but they are proposed solutions. And political action, again, far from perfect, but some proposed solutions include global technology tax. If the company produces technology that is going to displace human workers, they should pay technology tax instead. UBI, very popular measure. Research shows that it's working in Africa. Women are given cash instead of engaged in some kind of social program. They don't spend the money on drinks or gamble. They, fix the roof of their homes or start new businesses. So this seems to work, UBI. And we all know that regulation is easy to get around. So again, the point being, it's not a perfect solution. So I have a speculative slide here. So far, I've talked up to and including what I told you was narrow AI, and we can expect, according to many experts, that at some point the machines are going to reach what we call AGI, artificial general intelligence, and they will become thinking machines. Estimates include from 2025 to 2050 by experts who have good track record of predicting technology correctly. And so at this point, then we probably, among many other questions, need to ask, is it ethical to discriminate against robots? And it seems to me until they indicate that they're sentient, the answer is yes, we need to protect the human jobs. Do you recognize where this picture is from? Ex Machina. Okay, and I'd like to leave you with another question at the end of my talk, which is, do you want to live in a techno-feudalism or a techno-optimism type of society? And I think that for now, we still can all participate in creating the answer. Thank you.
Thank you, Stani. And next up, we'll have Amiko talk about fun with Garrett code review.
What is the, oh, this is it. That's right in front of you. Oh, great. Thank you. Hello, everyone. Can you hear me okay? Great. Welcome to GDG Meetup today. My name is Emiko Hori, Software Engineer Manager at Commerce Hub in Seattle. Today, we're going to be exploring an application called Garrett. This is a Garrett 101 presentation. What is Garrett? Why Garrett? And we're going to go over some fantastic features of Garrett UI. Are you ready? Yes, great. Great. So first of all, what is Garrett? Does anybody know what Garrett is? Nobody knows? Okay. Okay, so Garrett is a web-based, free web-based, a collaborative code review tool. This application has been developed by Sean Pierce at Google, but this was the part of the Android project. Evidently, this project was a huge success that Google opened the community. Thank you, Google. Totally amazing. This application has been built on top of the Git version control system. So if you're already familiar with Git, this is a great news. The name Garrett was formed by Gerrit Rietveld, who was the famous Dutch architect in 1800s. He must be a genius to get the name adopted like this. Yes. All right, so next question. Why code review? Does everybody know why code review is so important as the part of the software development lifecycle? Anybody? Nobody knows? Okay. Yes. Yes. So for the most obvious reasons is to reduce the bug count. Yes. You will be surprised how many of the design like flaws or logic errors or even typos once in a while you find it. Now, code review process provides an excellent opportunity for mentorship and mentoring junior engineers, even and the people who are new to your team. Now, it is also a great opportunity to learn how other people code. And you can make sure that people are following the guideline of your company's coding standard. And it is also a great opportunity to learn about all these developers you admire a lot, that you can learn from the senior engineers like this. So by learning, you can also learn about the component stuff, which is outside of your domain. By reading something you're not familiar with, you can have a bigger pictures of the component you're working with, or the multiple components within your company. And also, this is an excellent way to collaborate. Yes, unless you are the one-person company, everybody has to work together as a team, correct? Yes. So by reading somebody else's code, we can strike meaningful conversations and clarify some of the questions. And this one, if your company is not having an official step of code review within the software development lifecycle, I highly recommend you to do so. Now that said, the why Gerrit? And what's the benefit of Gerrit? Okay, first of all, it makes the code review process really fun. The interaction with the developer and the reviewer are very, very, very interactive. It's really fun. And Gerrit UI gives us the status of code changes and reviews. We can see who developed it and who reviewed it from repository and branch levels. So, in this particular case, maybe you may not be able to see, there's a column called project. Project means the name of the repository in Gerrit terminology. Now, Gerrit UI syntax is almost identical to Git syntax. Using Gerrit, each commit generates a unique ID. It's called a change ID. And this ID stays for the entire life of the commit until the merge process completes for the final repository. Also, we can refer this unique ID whenever we navigate the Gerrit UI. And I'm going to show you the Gerrit UI in a minute. And Gerrit can also integrate really well with CI tools. The communication between CI tools and the Gerrit server are very smooth, and the continuous delivery is seamless. In this example here, the actually Team City is sending a message to Gerrit server saying, please acknowledge, and if the build process is passed, then please assign +1 as a success label. I'm going to be talking about the label a little bit later. And then also, Gerrit becomes a part of Git repository. It is a gate before making an official check-in for the final repository. So when Gerrit is integrated with CI tool, the CI build path will be ensured before the official check-in. Of the code will be maintained. Right. Moving on. This is one of the examples of how CI tool can integrate with the Gerrit server. In this particular model, in the middle green area represents the steps from the CI server. When developer pushes his or her code into the branch, the CI kicks in and notify the status of the CI steps. When that is going on, the developer can assign the reviewer using the Gerrit UI. So when all of the CI steps and the review process is complete and successfully passed, then the developer can finally submit and merge to the final repository. So in this case, the code review becomes a mandatory process prior to the merge to the repository. Now let me go over the fantastic features of Gerrit UI. The first web page you need to go is Ta-da! The login page. Yay! That's it. Nice and simple, right? Right. Now, after we go through this, this is the official Garrett UI page. You are looking at my review page. On the top of the section, it has the outgoing reviews, which means that I would like somebody else to review my code. And the incoming review means that somebody else would like me to review his or her code. On the right-hand side, you may be able to see a little grids with capital letters. And these are the actually showing of the label. Label meaning a rating category that allows or blocks the progress of the change. And if you may see that, there are some green check marks. Green check marks means that particular label is successfully passed. The blank means it's in progress or nothing happened yet. And it happens to be red, that means that particularly label is being failed. So you can push it into the repository. That said, these are some of the label examples, and labels are actually highly customizable. In this particular model, we actually called it B as a build, or CR for code review, D as a deploy, but in actual Garrett config file, you can name it anything you want. If you want to name it as a cat, as a C, or D as a dog, yes, go for it. You can even name it as a Darth Vader if you want. It's highly customizable, so you can just go into the Garrett config file and start tweaking it, depending upon what kind of steps you want to gate. Okay, next, this is a review detail page. In this detail page, you're gonna see the owner of the commit and the status of the labels. In this particular case, the code review is blank. That means it has not been assigned the code reviewer just yet. So you go into the review section and start assigning it to whoever you want to be to review on by typing in somebody's email address. Once it's been committed, the reviewer will get the email notification saying, please review my code. Yes. And then one thing to note that Garrett likes to send an email message for every single activities. When the build is passed, you get emails. When the deploy is passed, you get notified. So please be prepared to be spammed by Garrett server. Yes, that's the word. Now this is the drill down of the code review page with the line by line comparison, and you can click any line of the code and make comments line by line. But you don't have to do line by line code comments. You can actually also go to the review section and start making comments for the entire commits. And also, this reviewing section has a scoring from -2 to +2. And these are the multiple choices that you selected. And I'm so passionate about this scoring system that I like to talk to you about. Now, as you see, there's a scoring system from -2 to +2. Now, -2 means this shall not be merged at all. So it's pushed back to the developer. Now, -1 means that I would prefer not this to be merged. Well, the difference between -1 and -2 can be that -1 might require some clarification from the business side that maybe something had changed, so the reviewer may not so sure that this is the current implementation or something like that. Now, the scoring 0 means no score. Now, you might think no score is a good thing, but actually it is not a good thing. The minimum requirement to get through this is to get +2, which is, looks good to me, it's approved. Now, let me talk to you about the +1. Looks good to me, but somebody else shall approve. This is particularly important when you would like to have a second set of eyes for your implementation. For example, if you are implementing something very large components, and you would like the stakeholders or your peer or also your manager or your team leads to just get their opinions about this code change. And as many as you want. Yes, go ahead, you can actually assign to 20 reviewers if you want. Because more people review it, more set of eyes of actual code changes, right? So my coworker actually complains that I spend too much time on the explaining a scoring system, but I'm absolutely passionate about this, so I can't stop talking about it. Now, as I mentioned, the developer cannot merge the changes unless everything is green. In this case, the code review failed, so he or she cannot merge. So the green means the developer is ready to submit to the repository. So when developer is ready to submit, there is a submit button. This is one of the most powerful buttons in the entire application. And do you know why? Because if any of these labels are not green, the submit button does not even show up. It doesn't. It drives me nuts. It drives everybody nuts. But I really appreciate this functionality to be here, because then we all do not make silly mistakes of submitting something we're not supposed to. So I'm thanking to Google. Thank you, Google. In case of failure of any labels, at the bottom of the page, there is a history section available. In this particular case, since this is integrated with the CI tools, you can actually go to CI link and start troubleshooting by link to actual CI tool. And now this is the main page of the Gerrit. And this is one of the reasons why our company adopted Gerrit, because by looking at this page, you get to see who developed which repository, which branch, and then which code has been reviewed, or which one has been failed, and so on. Every morning I come in the office, this is the first page that I look into. And within 5 or 10 seconds, you can instantly see the whole entire activity of the entire team. This is quite really, really powerful. I quickly went through, and some of the terminology I explained to you. Some of the things I have not mentioned yet is that abandon. There's an abandon feature available in Gerrit, which means that you can actually be able to cancel the entire operation in the middle of this merge process if you want. You can roll it back if you want. As I mentioned, it is a name of the Git repository. I do this really quickly. I usually give between 45 minutes to a 1 hour presentation on this particular topic. So if you want to know this topic in more detail, I have a YouTube video available. It's Fun with Gerrit with my name, Emiko Hori. So if you're interested, just check it out. And I'm also be presenting 1 hour workshop on this particular topic in October in Paris New Square. So if you're interested in that, please let me know. All right? I think this concludes my presentation. There are tons of information out there in the internet. I highly recommend going through one of the Sean Pierce's YouTube video available. He has a very good tutorial on this. And the bottom of the Learning Gerrit Code Review, that's a very good book that we refer to. So do I take any questions, or probably not? At the end. All right. That's it. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you.
That's great. Thank you.
Thank you.
So now we're going to move on to the next one. So please welcome Abba's context-aware analytics, intelligent apps.
Hello, everyone. It's such a pleasure to be here with this amazing group. My name is Abha. In my long career in technology, I've come a full circle, doing masters in computer science, being a developer, and then doing technology management, and now back to being hands-on as an entrepreneur. So after managing large-scale projects and teams, I decided to pursue my executive MBA, and at the end of the venture, decided to launch my own company. So the company mission is to build analytic solutions for small and medium businesses, enabling them to excel in the digital economy. So our first product, closer to home, is targeted at real estate brokers. It is a collaboration tool allowing them to provide seamless home buying experience to their customers. So while my venture and this talk is quite related, I'm going to step back a little from my core use case and talk about context-aware analytics in general and how it is relevant in today's world. So coming from an extensive mobile background, in my opinion, we are changing from a device-centric approach to an era where the computing is baked into the environment. So the intelligence is moving from the lower layer to applications, where applications are becoming more intelligent, and they are learning from the environment. And being context-aware is no longer very far-fetched. So I'm sure all of us have been amazed at the ad that we see in our Facebook feed when we Google something, or the coupon we receive in our mail when we purchase at a grocery store, or the NFL team app sending us coupons in our app when we are in the stadium when we buy a ticket. These are all great marketing initiatives, and they all result in good conversion. But I'm sure a lot of us find it a little intrusive, right? So what if the apps could help us with all the information at their disposal rather than just upsell? So coming to mobile apps, there is an app for everything nowadays. So I have a question for the group. I think it's a very simple one for this group. How many apps are available for folks to download currently? Any guesses? No specific answer? It's a lot. It's a lot. I think I'm showing. So at this point, there are 2.2 million apps available in Google Play. And this is not surprising that the Android apps is the largest number available right now, considering all the folks, intelligent folks out there. And also because we have access to all the cloud computing, and we have all these tools and collaboration available. But there is a problem. There's another question for the group. What percentage of apps are retained by the consumer after day 1 or after day 30? Any guesses in the room? Sorry? Yeah, well, it's actually worse. So as we can see, app retention is a challenge. So like I said, with access to cloud infrastructure and the avenues for collaboration and access to all these tools, the main challenge for app developers is retention of customers. See, identifying a problem, coming up with an app idea that is great. It's great, but it's step 1. The main challenge comes that you can get those consumer on your system going forward. So looking at the trend of Android apps, you can see that that graph tapers down drastically. A staggering 90% of the consumers are not using the app after 30 days. 95% after day 90. So as you can see, app retention is a big issue. Another question on Android, that's just trivia. What are the top categories of apps available in the Play Store? Any guesses? Games, right? That's great. So games, education, and business are among the top ones. But statistics show that games are actually stagnating, while the business apps and mobile commerce is picking up, and there's a lot of growth still left in them. So talking about some of the solutions. Okay, this is an old slide. It's going to build up, but anyway, we can talk about them one by one. So I think there are some baseline stuff, like having the expectations of the app match with what they actually deliver is very important. If you promise more than what you deliver in the app, then there is no chance of retention. Seamless onboarding, making it simple for them to get onto the app is required, and intuitive UI is baseline. Now, another way to retain consumers would be to send them offers based on their usage. These are some of the similar to the examples that we discussed earlier. Another way, good one, is to track the application usage, look at their stats, and make only certain features available based on the usage within the app. So figure out the amount of time that the user is spending within the app, and based on that usage, make certain features available. So that keeps the app simple, makes only the features that are relevant to the consumer available to them, and based on that feature usage, the app developer can only spend time on features that are most relevant to the consumer. That's one way. And one way that definitely doesn't work is sending them email reminders that you haven't logged into your app in a while. That just goes into a spam folder and would have no impact. The one that I really want to talk about is what if all the information that is available to the app from the environment, they use it to help the consumer within the context of the app. So the premise is that this would come as a pleasant surprise to the consumer, and they would become more loyal. They will want to come back because you are using the information to help them rather than just an upsell. So going more into that. So this is a diagram that talks about how we can approach this problem. So this basically is saying that the app becomes more like a personal assistant. It is taking information from different areas within the app, the other apps, and the system to build a context that can actually help the app. So, and making that available. So here we see app has access to information like the system log, how many times have they logged into the platform, how much usage have they done. The app has information around purchase history. They have information about how the consumer has used social media. They have information about local public and private events. So, and many, many more. So most of this data today is used in aggregate, and it is used to push marketing initiatives. So most of these marketing initiatives are either specific to the consumer, like the coupon that arrives in your mail, or it is real time, but not specific, it's generic. It's one sale happening in certain area that's available to all consumers. So the idea is that you could make use this information to derive meaning out of it and make the notifications not just generic or real time, but both. specific to the consumer and real time by using this information to derive meaning and taking specific action. Like you could push a particular product version to a consumer because they are on an older version of the app. Or you could send them just-in-time notifications that are relevant to the consumer and build that kind of intelligence within the app. Okay. So another way to look at it is there is a service running between the mobile app and the information available within the system. And what it is doing, this is another way of depicting the idea that the app, it has a service running on behalf of it that is taking information from other apps within the system, and also system information like the calendar entry and time and your camera or your location information, and over a period of time build intelligence and then make that information available to the app and present some next best actions. So let me walk you through a scenario where this technology can be used. So Mary is a frequent customer of a neighborhood grocery store. And she's also a very busy individual. So the neighborhood grocery store is providing its customers with an app that uses context-aware service. Mary has been busy all week, and she has missed her weekly shopping trip. All is well, but she's almost out of a basic stuff but she doesn't know about it yet, right? So, however, thanks to the analytics, context-aware analytics that's available as a service to the app is aware of that exception and also knows that this particular trip was important for her. So when she travels to another appointment within a mile of the store, the service provides a trigger to the app, which notifies Mary, reminding her that this is a good time to pick up your basic stuff. So now Mary, of course, is pleasantly surprised because she doesn't have to make a emergency run to the store at 5 a.m. in the morning. And she's now a loyal customer of the store. She'll always be retained on the app, right? So this mechanism lets the app gain intelligence over a period of time, providing them increased relevance to the user. So it will become more and more relevant to the user. They'll start liking it more, increasing the stickiness and opening up new monetization opportunities. So now the store can send them more information and they would like it because they know that the app is also helping them in certain scenarios. So this is just a suggestion. There are many ways to do it. I'm not here to recommend any architecture or any particular tools. The goal was to start a conversation, and I hope you enjoyed this talk. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Abba, for your talk. Before we move on to the next speaker, I forgot something. If you like to use social media, like Twitter, G+, etc., I have put the handle of Women Techmakers Seattle, GDG Seattle, as well as the hashtags there, Women Techmakers, GDG Seattle, and Women in Tech. Okay, so next one, let me move to the side first. So please welcome Hatsmik to share with us surviving as software engineer.
Hey guys, how are you doing? Good? All right, so this is probably the most serious talk of tonight. I just want to warn you about that, but let's get right with it. And the next slide is actually my most important slide, which is why it's number 2. Knowing how to code is not enough. Now, I know you guys are now like really shocked. You're like, what do you mean it's not enough? That's what my prestigious college taught me. They would have taught me any other skills that I would have learned. But the truth is, as soon as you're into the corporate world, there's other skills that are very important. And unfortunately, if you're anything like me, you learn these things the hard way by making mistakes over and over again until it finally gets into your head. So now that I got your attention, I'm actually going to quickly do an introduction. I was like, okay, I should put my name third. That makes a lot of sense. I'm Hazme Kantarian. I've been in software industry my whole life. Last 4 years, I've been Android and developer. I'm currently working at Disney, so I have quite a few large corporations under my belt. So trust me, I learned all of these things the hard way. And I'm going to talk about 7 lessons specifically about being the brand, third-party libraries, documentation, methodology, interviewing, priorities, and the human factor. Now, you're probably like wondering, you're like, she doesn't look that old. I bet I have more experience than her in the industry. I've learned all of these and I've made more mistakes. Maybe. If you've made more mistakes, sure. But I think there's a certain value in formalizing these and writing them down and thinking about them. I think it helps us avoid these more. So these are just mine, and I hope it will help you guys. But you know, after this, just think about what are your mistakes and what are the lessons you've learned the hard way, and what do you wish that never gets repeated again. So without any more talk, let's get started. Being the brand. I know I just told you I work for Disney, and this is kind of an ironic slide because Disney is all about being the brand. But I think there's a difference between respecting a brand and being the brand. So it's like the big point to take out of this is like, don't confuse your identity with that of your company. And the reason for this is, I think there's a certain blindness that comes about when you're just like the biggest fanboy or fangirl of a technology, because you start turning a blind eye towards innovation as it comes along, just because it comes from maybe in a different form, or it comes from a source that you don't really believe in. I think, in fact, if you do respect the brand, you have to keep open and experience with other fields, other competitors, or it's not even about competitors, just different things, in order to best assess what's working, what's not, where are things going, and being flexible and accepting the changes that come around, because we are all in the tech industry, and every month there are changes. Third-party libraries. How many of you guys work with that coworker who like starts off by saying like, let's import library A, B, X, Y, Z, and we need a little bit of E and F too. And they're like, okay, so what are we gonna do now? I'm like, Libraries are great. They are like having a panel of experts at your fingertips, people who have thought really hard about a problem and have come up with great solution. I'm not saying don't use any third-party libraries. What I'm trying to say is don't fall into the trap of just automatically using them because that's what you've been doing in your previous projects. You have to check the cost of upkeep for these. There's often times where it'd be way simpler to just write things on your own, especially, I'm sure there's a more upfront cost maybe to that, but at the end of the day, the upkeep ends up benefiting you more and you do have more control. You're not losing that control that you have. And then there's the other fallacy that you fall for is, do you really need all that functionality? Let's say you bring in a large library just to use it for the small thing, and then you have to do something else, and you're gonna say, hey, this library already does that. Sure, in a very complicated and convoluted way, I don't need it, but it's already here, let me use it. So, next your coworker comes, he's doing, code reviews and things like that, no matter what the system is, Garrett or not, and they're like, why do we use that? What does this mean? Why? Do we really need all this? And you're like, don't want to admit to it that you really don't need that. So you just added complexity. You added more overhead for yourself just because it was already there. And last, outdated code can be very costly to move away from. Let's say you were using a library and somebody stopped updating it. Sure, the right thing to do would be for you to step in and contribute to the community. But we're talking about the corporate world, not the startup world or maybe the side project world. You don't often have the time to go and contribute to the project in order to then consume it, right? So these are all things that you have to take into consideration when using libraries. The one place I do always recommend a library, though, is if you're ever doing anything with dates or times. You know, I'm sure all of you guys have done this. It's like, how long ago was this event? And you just use a library. It doesn't matter. The cost does not matter, trust me. All right. Next, documentation. And this one has a tagline. Don't worry, it's all in my head. I swear, I fall for this every time. I'm working on this complicated project. I'm like, I got it right here. Why do I need to write this down? This is so simple. And then, you know, actually, no, let's do audience participation for this part. How many of you have taken a look at some obsolete, ridiculous code and started muttering under your breath, like, who's the idiot who wrote this? And then you realize it was yourself. Come on. Exactly. Exactly. This happens to all of us. It happens to the best of us. In fact, I think the more of a genius you are, the more in the moment you solve the problem in a weird way, and then the more you regret it at the end, you know, like a week later. I'm not even talking about months. When it's happening right now, it feels like there's no way you'll forget it. But it's really, really important to document the thing you're doing. It doesn't have to be formal documentation. It's great that there is, but it can be sticky notes. That's my preferred way, actually, which I later transcribe somewhere else. But it can be in the code. It doesn't have to be all of it. It just has to be the more complicated things. But document in whatever way that doesn't take too much from your, you know, for me, sticky notes just work, right? I know it doesn't make sense for a lot of other people, but just document everything. So I put this slide in the middle. I was like, I know I'm gonna have a lot of people who don't agree with me. So I'll put it in the middle so you guys don't think about it. You know, you'll remember the first thing I said and the last and not the middle. But let's talk about methodology. I love Agile. However, I feel like there's a lot of people who insist that it is the best methodology. And I would argue that a methodology is just a tool. I mean, sometimes you need to use a certain tool for a certain task. I mean, sure, my toolbox is filled with duct tape, but when I need to, you know, hammer a nail in, I'm going to use a hammer, right? I think methodologies are in the same way. Oftentimes we meet people who have like this dogma obsession with a certain methodology, and they don't realize that for the specific project, for the specific group of people, for the specific timeline, it just doesn't work. And again, this is somebody, you know, I like Agile methodology. I think it's great. I think it's great to have every 2 weeks to have a shippable project, but it just doesn't always work. Case in point, it kind of doesn't work at Disney. We try, we adapt it, but we get the money for our projects up front, and we know what our deadline is. And those two things cannot change in our project. So even though we do sprints and we try to be, you know, adaptable to change, we are not truly an agile organization because of that, right? And that's okay. I don't know. I was like really scared. I was actually scared somebody in the audience would start like booing at me whenever I put the slide. I was like, boo. Interviewing. Where do you see yourself in 5 years? All right. So I got 2 parts of this one. One, as an interviewee. I think it's a skill we'll learn, how to interview people, but nobody really teaches it to us. They just kind of one day they're like, oh, hey, you've been in the office for a year now. I mean, two weeks now, you know, depending on the organization. Like here's some resumes, an hour-long interview. Okay, and we never really learn. My advice is, and this is like the most important thing, I think, don't test on the things that you know, test on what they know. And I know this sounds a little bit weird because you're like, but if I don't know that, how do I know if they know it or not? But trust me on this. I actually remember one of my first interviews out of college. I was like new, I was really, really nervous about it. So I go in there and it's like, you know, gonna be a long 5-hour-long interviews. And the guy's like, so how much do you know about SQL? And I'm like, well, I'm applying for an ASP.NET developer position. I know how to select items from a table, but that's about it. That's all I know. He's like, okay, good. So let's say you have 3 tables. And the primary key is, I'm just like, wait, what? I just told you everything I know about SQL. Are you kidding me? You know, like what? So it was a miserable hour. And then of course I found out like at the end when he's like, okay, now ask a little bit about me. I'm like, so what do you do here? Oh, I'm the DB admin. And I'm like, oh, okay, you know, but don't be that person. Don't be the DB admin equivalent of your job. Try to figure out what the person themselves knows, what position that they're hiring for. And kind of on that note, computer science questions are not, because you do learn a lot of things when you ask a person those questions. But the thing I think you learn most is whether they can do computer science style questions. And it's a great skill to have because they know that they can, study really hard. They have a good grasp of these data structures and things like that, but that's sometimes not enough. And that again is one of the situations where you have to think about what job you're hiring them from. Of course, if you're fresh out of college, that may be the only thing you know, and that's okay, but adjust it. Don't come into the interview room with already your questions in mind. Find out what they do and maybe tie in the computer science questions related to that. Okay, so that was being the interviewee. On the interviewing side, I wanna say, it's a small world. Be honest on your resume. If we had like 15 more minutes for this talk, I would tell you guys the most ridiculous story about this. But trust me, we think we're in the Seattle's a big tech industry, there's a lot of things. But no, just be honest. Don't claim to be doing projects you've only heard about and things like that. It will come back and bite you. That should be like pretty obvious, but trust me. All right, priorities. This is an interesting one for me. I also really like that picture. You obviously didn't prioritize well enough. So I think we learn how to prioritize pretty early on. We learn it in high school, we learn it in college, because with that prioritization, we can't really get work done. But the more interesting aspect of it is understanding the priorities of the people you depend on. And I had examples of that. There was this one time when I was making these new changes, I was doing all this cool code, and I needed the service team to change one little thing. It was just one tiny thing. I know it wouldn't take them more than like 2 hours to, complete it. And they just wouldn't do it. And I was like, come on, man, what's wrong? I'd go and I'd look at the ticket and have you updated this? Anyway, it was like a week later when I'm complaining to my, tech lead. I'm like, they just won't do it. They're like, oh, didn't you hear? They're having life-side issues. They have this big project due. There's this big deadline on them. And then I felt very small and insignificant with my stupid little change, So I think whenever you're working on a project, step 1 is to be able to prioritize your work. Step 2 is to be able to prioritize the work of the people you depend on and communicate that and work with them. I could have done that work just as well like 2 weeks later, but I just didn't know and I didn't take the time to check. All right, last one, the human factor. I know a lot of you are introverts and you're like, but I'm working with computers, so I don't have to deal with people. Come on. I don't think there are many jobs in the world where you don't deal with it. And I think the biggest lesson that I learned the hard way is people are motivated by completely different things. And in fact, some things that you yourself don't understand how that could be a motivation, But it's very important to identify what those motivations are, just to get along with people better. And I think one other aspect of this is when you're in the college world, at the end of the day, all you guys care about is getting a grade. And you're also, more or less about the same age, more or less taking the same class, more or less interested in the same major. So you're very similar. Once you get to the workplace, you're dealing with people who have with variety of backgrounds, variety of experiences, again, variety of motivations. And one, you have to understand them and you have to learn how to deal with them. Two, don't peg them for a role because you don't know what their experience is from. Sometimes asking the broad questions, you get a lot of great answers from people just because you didn't know that their background included that kind of expertise. And the second thing about the human factor, this is more interpersonal, is don't get too attached to your code. or your design, or your idea, or even your desk, or your manager. I think in my current job, I've been here for 3 years and I've had 6 managers, all of them great, don't get me wrong, but you know, it's expect change. Be okay with it. If you get upset at it, it is something that is very upsetting. But if you look at it from the grand scheme of things, you realize oftentimes it doesn't matter. Just your attitude has to change. To just go with the flow, go with the change, and see the good things. And there's also another thing, you know, everybody's like, man, do you remember when we first started? Things were so great. I'm like, how about now? Things are still great. I mean, different great, but they're still great. We're going to be looking back at this and saying it was so great now. And the last point I want to do on this slide is actually something my manager told me like a week ago. He's like, if you're the busiest person in the room, you don't know how to delegate. And I was like, now I understand our relationship. You know, no, but maybe you don't delegate or you don't know how to say no. Those are skills that you really have to learn. Nobody's going to take it personally. Well, some people might, but people should not take it personally when you say no, when you have a good reason for it. You know, and it's really hard. It's much more difficult for some people than it is others. So if you can't delegate, just remember to say no. All right, that's it. Thank you very much for your time, guys.
Okay. We had really great talks tonight. What we call jobs, fun with Garrett, context-aware analytics for intelligent apps, and surviving a software engineer. Now, this is the last talk by me, and I will be talking about how to get started with conference speaking. So how many of you have given talks somewhere before? How many of you have given talks at a conference? And how many of you are interested in getting started with public speaking or speaking at a conference? Okay, I see just a few hands. Okay, perhaps the rest of you have already given talks before. So why do we want to speak at conferences? You know, I've given talks at conferences before and I wasn't being paid. So why? Why do we give conference talks? So here are some of the reasons. The biggest reason is to share your knowledge. A lot of people think that, oh, let me just wait until I become an expert before I share my knowledge. But on the contrary, you become the expert when you share your knowledge first. And going to conferences is also a great way to learn. Well, one of the perks is that you get a free pass to the conference, right? When you attend other people's talks, you can how much you learn when you research that topic of the talk that you're gonna give. Giving talks at conferences is also a great way to network. You get introduced to professionals in your industry, you hang out with friends or meet with new friends. Also, you can promote yourself, get great exposure and publicity, and to build your leadership skills. So here's how I got started speaking at conferences. So I have been organizing GDG Seattle meetup for over a year now. Inchi was very kind to invite me to, and I also co-organized Seattle, East Side Seattle Android meetup. So I've been speaking at the meetup for a while. Also in 2015, I taught Android application development at the University of Washington, which gave me an opportunity to speak in front of an audience. However, speaking at meetups or teaching at a university may not be exactly the same as speaking in front of a larger audience at a conference. That started as part of Tricky Chen's grassroots campaign to bring more women to Joy-Con New York 2015. So tonight we have lots of women here, but typically when you go to a tech meetup or tech conference, when you look around, probably a few women around you, right? The most are men. So Tricky Chen is a Google developer expert in Android, also a very seasoned speaker. So she decided to bring more women to Joy-Con New York 2015. And I was fortunate enough to get experts' help to pick a topic, write up my proposal, and submit my talk to the conferences. I did not get selected. My talk did not get selected. You know, my first time submitting to a conference, but I did not give up. It was sad, but I did not give up. I submitted to a couple of conferences, and I got accepted to NDevCon San Francisco 2015, and that was my very first conference talk. And then after that, I've been giving talks at many conferences after that. This year, I gave a talk at 360 NDevCon, and I was invited to speak at a panel discussion at Seattle Code Rush, and a couple ones. My talk got accepted at these three conferences where I'm going to give talk for the rest of the year, beginning in San Francisco again. So that's how I got started. How can you get started? Take small steps first. Don't think about all of a sudden you're going to be speaking at a conference, right? You speak in front of a small audience at your workplace, at local meetup, perhaps a smaller audience. Tonight we have lots of people here, but there are also meetups with less people. You can give a 5-minute talk, show and tell at hackathons, DevFest. By the way, our DevFest is coming up. So after you get more comfortable speaking in front of a smaller audience, and you can decide to speak at a conference. The first step is to find and choose a conference. How do you do that? Well, if you're an Android developer like me, there are various lists I can go to find out what are the upcoming conferences, right? So you might be a web developer or iOS developer or some other profession, but you can connect with your community and then find out from your friends and colleagues and also through social media. So I included 2 links here that you can check out later. One is technical speaking. You can see the shirt that I'm wearing is I have something to say, because a lot of times you will think that you have nothing to say, right? But every one of you have something to say. So check out that technical speaking newsletter. It helped me a lot. And then I'll have included Jake Wharton's blog, The Conference Speaking Investment. For Android developers, you probably know who he is. He has written a lot of Android libraries. And this is an excellent blog on how to choose as a speaker, how to put together your presentation. Once you choose a conference, the very important step is to write a talk proposal. So again, this is the difference between speaking at a meetup or teaching at a university or somewhere between that and conference talks, because conference will write a proposal step, right? First, you choose a topic of your passion or your interest. I recommend you don't just pick a topic that is trendy. Pick a topic that you feel passionate about. You may or may not be an expert in it, but you feel passionate about it. Maybe your day job, you're working on it, or a side project you're working on, right? And then when you fill out the CFP, which stands for call for papers for conferences, the most important part is the title and the description. Okay, so the words is very small. I give an example to the right of my proposal. Basically, my proposal is to make Android apps with intelligence, with machine learning. And I talked about what are the topics that I'm going to be talking about, and I will be showing examples. So it's also very important to show people what you're going to be talking about and what your audience is going to get out of it after they hear your talk. And when you write your biography, try to make your biography go hand in hand with the talk that you're going to give. For example, the talk proposal I'm giving is how to make Android apps with intelligence. And if you look at my biography, is I'm an Android developer. Currently, I'm working on building Android apps to showcase machine learning services or capability, right? So a conference organizer look at that and say, okay, yeah, she's going to talk about something she's working on. Good. Optionally, include the social media links and your speaking profile. I'll talk about speaking profile in more details. And if you notice on my slide at the bottom, I have included my Twitter handle and the hashtag. So if you take a picture, please use that. And I will again talk about the importance of social media as well. Now that you finish your talk proposal, I encourage you to submit to multiple conferences and don't give up. Don't give up if it's not accepted. It's okay. Rejection is okay. Just keep trying. Okay? And Chuki Chen, I encourage you to watch. There's a 15-minute video about how to write conference proposal, and she goes deeper in more details about how to do that. After you submit your proposal, you get an email from the organizer and say, congratulations, we accept your talk at such and such a place. Now it's time to get preparing. You'll make a slide deck, okay? And you will write some sample code if it's a tech conference, and practice. Practice in front of your family, practice in front of your friends and colleagues, practice at a local meetup in front of a smaller audience before you go to a large conference with hundreds of people in front of you that you'll be speaking in front of, and get feedback and tweak your talk. And prepare for some logistics. Some of the things are small, like for example, the projector. You know, today you saw me, it took me about half an hour to get everything set up, and I've been coming here very regularly once a month, right? Still, it will take me a bit of time. Make sure I set up, clicker, etc. Now, just like software development, preparing for talk is never ending. You always want to do more tweaks to your deck, more tweaks to your sample code, a little bit more tweaks to that demo app that you're going to give. But you have to stop at some point. If I'm going to give my talk tomorrow, I have to set a deadline to say, hey, I'm going to stop now, and I need to get a very good night rest so that I can deliver tomorrow when I give my talk. So don't underestimate that. If you like have bad night's sleep or lack of sleep, you may not function as well. Now, during the talk, so my talk today is not so much about the techniques about public speaking, etc. I'm more focusing on the process of speaking at conferences, right? However, there's still a few tips and tricks about when you give a talk. I find that storytelling is a very powerful tool for connecting with your audience. If you give a tech talk, you know, you show the demo, it's good, sample code is good, but still you have to connect with the audience. When I went to 360 NDev conference this year, Kelly, who gave the keynote, she did an excellent job using storytelling. So she started out talking about this great artistic, modern looking museum in Denver. It was good, very good looking, but it was not designed with everyone in mind. So it had lots of accessibility issues. Then she transitioned that story into talking about how Android is designed for everyone. So I thought that was like just perfect, the way she opened up her keynote, right? When you give a talk, bring your friends, bring your colleagues, bring some people who you know, and sit in the audience. And when they smile at you, you look at them, you feel much more comfortable, right? You get that emotional support. When I gave my first conference talk at NDevCon, my friends Chuki and Kelly were there to support me. They took a picture of me, tweeted out my talk, took sketch notes. It's just very nice. Also, when you give a talk, sometimes mistakes will happen. There might be technical glitches if you're doing that live demo. It's okay if you make a mistake. Just recover from it and move on. It's also a very good practice if you give a talk on your slide or at the end, let people know how to contact you. And then after your talk, it's very important to stay connected with the audience. You know, it's not over once you give a talk and then, okay, goodbye, thank you, right? You will post the slides online and promote your talk on social media. I have to reiterate, as a speaker, as you get started with public speaking or speaking at conferences, it's very important to promote your talk on social media. Also, stay connected with the friends you've made on social media. I did not start using Twitter that much until I started attending conferences and also speaking at conferences. And well, I actually didn't really know how to use Twitter that much until then. So I included a link here. Anise Davis wrote an excellent blog on tackling Twitter if you're not familiar with Twitter. So how many of you use Twitter? Oh, okay, all of you, almost. Great. Another thing I recommend is to write blogs. Now I'm talking about after your talk and blogging and about speaking at conferences. But I encourage you to write a blog about the conference, whether you just gave a talk or you went as an attendee. You can talk about what you've learned from the conference, the technical content, the people you've met. So promoting on social media, blogging, and speaking at conferences all go hand in hand. That's how you become an expert. That's how you establish your credibility, and that's how people become to know you. And finally, after your talk, remember to update your speaking profile. So I have included a link here that Chiki Chen, again, wrote an excellent blog on speaking profiles, where to put that speaking profile, right? So I will talk about it in my next slide on speaking profile as well. But the point is that when you want to talk somewhere, whether it's a meetup or conference, whether it's a form you filled out or an email the organizer sends you, they want to know your experience. It's just like when you go apply for a job, you give a resume or you send them a LinkedIn, right? When you apply to speak somewhere, they want to know, where have you given talks before? At what conference, right? So some of the actions that I listed here, you do not need to wait until after your talk to take these actions. For example, social media. When your talk gets accepted, especially when your talk, very first time your talk gets accepted, you're so excited about it. Or your talk gets accepted at some high visibility conference. Go send out a tweet or just on social media how excited you are. Send out a tweet before you give your talk. Send out a tweet. You can schedule automated tweet during your talk, and then afterwards, send a tweet. So here are some of the tools I'm using. The reason why I'm listing here is because when I first started out speaking at public speaking and speaking at conferences, I didn't really know what to do. Like, all right, what should I use to make slides, right? So there are other options out there, but this is what I use. I use Google Slides so that I can put it in presenter mode like this, and then I export my slides to PDF file. Then I upload my file to this place called Speaker Deck. So there are other sites as well, but this is what I use. There, it's public, everyone can see, and you can easily tweet out a link of your slide deck. And then again, on speaking profiles. I'm not a web developer, so I know a little bit of HTML and CSS, but I'm not that proficient as a web developer. So I chose GitHub page where you can go, you can easily use a template to create a nice looking page, including everything. Now, if you're a web developer, you can have your own web page. But the point is you should compile all your speaking experience at one place so you don't hunt down 5 links to give it to that organizer. Trust me, organizers are very busy. I'm an organizer. I really don't want like 5 links in my email. I'd rather you give me one URL and I can go see your speaking history, right? And then there's a site called a lanyard. It's very nice where you can go put down your speaking history. You can see all the stats such as, oh, I appeared at such a conference with these speakers. Some of them are very high visibility speakers, right? And you can also put down which conference you went, just attended as attendee, or perhaps you involved or organized it. And then blog, I use Medium. How many of you use Medium or read blogs on Medium? Okay, just a few of you. If you would like to, it took me years. I wanted to write blogs, but there's so many other things to do. I finally got started and I write my blog on Medium. It's very easy. You don't have to worry about much about formatting or setting or configuration. You just start writing. And then if you copy pasting a link from G+ or Twitter, it will resolve to the image along with the tweets at the bottom of that image, which is very nice. And then finally, I encourage you to use social media. I use Twitter a lot, sometimes G+ as well. Okay, great. So thank you very much for listening to my talk. I hope my talk will help you get started with public speaking. And I hope to see you soon to speak at our meetup and perhaps one day at a conference. And I hope to keep in touch with you. So that was my talk, officially wrapped up my talk. Now I would like to invite everybody, all the speakers up here, and give everybody perhaps 5 minutes if you have any questions to ask us. So everyone, please, all the speakers. And then after questions, I will also announce some of the upcoming events. Actually, let me just announce the upcoming events because some of you are taking off. We have Progressive Web Roadshow coming up on October 5th. So I encourage all of you to sign up. We also have our GDG Dev Fest coming up on October 15th. The ticket is very difficult to get, but if anybody who's interested in, you can ask me afterwards. Okay, so come up here. We have 5 people. So does anybody have questions? And I have a microphone here. Yinchi, do you want to pass the microphone around?
Just leaving.
I know.
So my question, thank you all, first of all, for coming out on your time, because I really appreciate it. But my question is for some of these talks that you want to go to, if they're outside the Seattle area, do you find that you can get your employers to sponsor you as far as travel? Or, okay, could you go a little bit into that? Because it's
Sure.
very expensive to go to Beijing.
I will ask that question real quick. Like I said, to give these talks, I do not get paid. However, some conferences will cover my flight and or hotel. Typically, they will cover your hotel before they cover the flight. And sometimes it also takes a bit of a negotiation. And sometimes you have to establish your credibility first. And I'm sure at some of the conferences, some of the more famous speakers, they might get paid to go give their talks. Also, if you go give a talk representing your company might be willing to pay for you. Any other questions? Oh, we got one more question.
Yeah.
Mine's more, I wanted to give you, you said there was a story and you said it would take a while, but now that we have time, I do want to.
Why don't you come up to me afterwards and I can talk about it?
Just a comment. I really enjoyed all the speeches, all the presentations. They were very informative. I guess my comment on technology taking over, robots taking over our jobs. I think the comment was they had an editorial at Seattle Times, and they were talking about Hillary Clinton that represents the well people, and Donald Trump represents the wall people. And so it was really interesting because, as you're saying, technology is taking, robots are taking over. You know, the emphasis on trying to employ more people at a rate. I don't think they're really talking about really training people, and I think the United States has been so behind a lot of other countries in investing, so this is just kind of like catch up.
Yeah, that's the message. You have to get involved.
Yeah. So the thing was, I guess, to comment, especially in manufacturing, because that's one of the that I was in a lot. I saw a lot of catch-ups and consumer manufacturing. Thank you so much. It was very informative, your presentation on that.
Thank you.
Pass this one
So I felt as we had very little time and we just grasped little points, and I would like to dig more into those subjects. All of them were amazing and very interesting. I was wondering if you can put it as a resource page on the blog or somewhere, anything that you would recommend, because you kind of dig into this subject and you know more, and like the top best books to read or blogs or something, just a link so you can dig into it deeper and get better understanding.
Yeah, I think that's a really good comment about dig deeper. All the talks are really, really good. I wish, one day maybe we'll have time for each talk to be a full talk instead of a 15 minute talk. But this gave us a chance, like everyone gets a chance to talk. Yeah, we'll definitely include links.
Just wanted to add to what Margaret said. You should really go on Twitter if you're not on Twitter, and search for the topics that interest you. Start following some people, and it's a great resource. You can create your own list of the topics you're interested in, organize. So yeah.
I have one thing.
Okay.
So as I mentioned, if you want to go deeper, I have a YouTube video that says Fun with Karen. So if you want to go further a little bit about that, I have a longer presentation on that, just for me. Thanks.
And if you want more lessons learned, I just recommend sticking with the corporate world. Don't ever go to startup, you'll get so many funny stories.
I like startup planning. Any other questions or comments?
Yeah, thank you, everyone. Like, echoing what other people said, just hearing, successful women was really a treat. And Sonny, thank you so much for your presentation. You mentioned Ray Kurzweil, and between him and Kevin Kelly, what are some other futurists that you kind of follow, or people that you kind of agree with their predictions, but agree with their reasoning?
Sure, I can take this. So I do follow Ray Kurzweil a lot. Kenny Kelly, not so much, but apparently he has a new book out. I guess I would recommend David Wood, who is head of, I think it's called Humanity Plus, but it's the British Transhumanist Society. And also, I guess I really like, I think I mentioned Aubrey de Grey for research into biotech. But David Wood, definitely check him out, and I'll tell you more later as well.
Are there any questions? No questions? Great. Thank you everyone so much for coming here. We'll see you again at our future meetup.
Thank you so much, Margaret. That was really amazing.
Yeah, thank you. I want to get a picture with all of you before you go.
It's getting a long day, but it was a good one.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for preparing everything. That was yes. I want to take a picture too.
Yes, let's get a picture of us together.